All right, so let's see. We're back here, CAMX 2022. I have Wynn Doolittle of Stoner Inc. joining me today. Wynn, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested. We had a conversation before you stopped by. You've got a pretty lengthy background, and so I always like to start with my guest. We'll get into Stoner, some of the products that you do, and how you support the industry with mold release. But let's start with you. Tell me about yourself in the industry.
Yeah, I got into the composites industry in 1981,
Okay.
and I think sometimes a career finds you. You don't find a career.
Sure.
And I actually have a financial background.
Okay.
I was working for Mobil, the oil company, in a financial position, and found out that I didn't particularly care for these large bureaucracies. And my wife and I moved from Bakersfield to Southern California and had a chance to go to work for the Xerxes Corporation as a controller in their manufacturing facility, which happens to be about 7 miles from here.
Oh, wow.
That was in 1981.
Okay.
And so Xerxes was a very large manufacturer of underground storage tanks, and they were putting together a professional entity after the owners purchased it from Dark Craft. And so part of that was the financial side, part of it was engineering, manufacturing. And in any event, the day I walked in the door, they said, by the way, we fired the purchasing agent. You're it also. So at a fairly young age, I started interacting with, the large resin companies, the large glass companies.
Sure.
Ultimately, after a very short period of time, I was the number 2 guy in the facility, and that's how I got my start in composites.
That's great. That is great. And it's been all smooth sailing from there, right?
No. So in any event, the owners of the company purchased a continuous panel manufacturing entity and moved it from Santa Monica to Chino, and I was living in Chino Hills, and they go, we want you to go up there and be the operations manager.
Sure.
And that wasn't as much fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there still is a regional distributor called RevChem Plastics, which is now RevChem Composites.
Yep.
And as the purchasing guy, they literally were half a mile away from where I was in Anaheim.
Okay.
And Doug Dennis was the owner, and he wanted to grow the business, and he says, hey, why don't you come on and be the general manager and help me this? So I was there for 17 years. As an entity, we grew the business quite substantially. And so RevChem was the kind of company who was competing up against some very strong, now, there's one entity that owns all the rest of them that were around there.
Right.
And so we differentiated ourselves by being very technically oriented on anything that we wanted to represent. Because in this business, on the distribution level, every distributor has access to every resin or glass line or the sundry end of the equations. And consequently, in those days, we focused on tooling type of products to establish a relationship at the plant level. And by focusing on them, we needed to know how to apply gel coats, sand them, buff them, release them.
Right.
And RevChem at that time had just about every release agent company in their repertoire. Right. And so that's how I got my feet wet on the release side of the business.
Yeah. And now you're with Stoner. So, so that's, and that we'll get into that, because it is interesting how you differentiate yourself as a company amongst so many other markets out there. And you guys, I know, cover, as Stoner, you cover several industries, including composites, but you're also in polyurethane and other industries as well.
I think we have something like 7 market segments. 45% of the business is actually consumer related. We're have all the car care products and things to that effect, competing up against some pretty big names in the industry.
Right.
But the company was founded as on the release agent side of the business back in the early 1940s.
Okay. So the company as a whole, give us a little of you just mentioned, kind of walk us back through the history of the company, Where are they located, the headquarters?
Sure. So the company was founded by a gent named Paul Stoner. In 1941, give or take. And he was a chemist by training, okay? And so the facility is in Quarryville, Pennsylvania, which is, I don't know, halfway between Philadelphia and Baltimore. Sure. And it's still there today. It's now owned by the grandson of the owner, and he is not a stoner. His name is Eklund. So, in any event, over the years, the company has diversified a fair amount by buying small other entities and bringing those brands into the company. Okay. And so as far as the repertoire goes, our largest market is in the plastics, which would be injection mold industry. Okay. And then followed by some really kind of oddball stuff, which aren't really release agent types of products, but we sell stuff to the medical industry that is unique unto us. We do all of our own aerosol packaging, so and that's everything from the consumer side that comes out of an aerosol to most of the plastic stuff is aerosol applied. And so, as you mentioned, we do polyurethanes, investment casting, rubber, and composites. So the composite side of the equation, Stoner purchased a company called Releasomers back in the 2010 or 11 or so, and Releasomers was one of these small entities that had water-based and solvent-based technology, and they had a couple of customers in the composite end of the equation on solvent-based semi-permanents. Right. And then in 2013, they purchased the SPC entity, which has the honey wax and the can stick line. And that was located in Riverside, which is about 40 miles from here. Okay. And I was running that business for the owner, and I opted to go with Stoner. Sure. And so that's how I ended up there. Yeah. And the rest is history. So. Yeah.
So a lot of people, you talk about water-based, solvent-based. Give us a little, if you would, explain some of the benefits. I know Zach, I've interviewed Zach, who's can't see him on the camera. He's off the camera. But he did a great explanation on a different podcast for us. Water-based, can you go into some detail on your water-based products? Sure.
So as it relates to the composite industry, and just a little bit of history, if we want to call it that. Yeah. So in today's world, in this country and Europe and a lot of Asia, the primary release technology for composites are polysiloxanes. Yeah. Okay. And that chemistry was invented by some pretty bright people in the Freecoat entity back in the 70s, oriented towards the rubber industry. Okay. And so that was polysiloxane is a reacted cross-linking polymer, and the solvent carrier is what was used because nobody cared about water back then. Right. Okay. And it took a while for Freecoat to get into the composite market, and because composites has significantly more mold demand for cleanliness, if you want to call it that. Yeah. And they ended up buying an awful lot of boat hulls because they didn't realize you needed to totally remove all the paste wax that was on there beforehand. Right. Until the industry figured out that mold preparation was so key to making a solvent-based semi-permanent work. Right. So the initiator for these semi-permanents is moisture. It comes right out of the air. So you put it on, sucks moisture out, cross-links in a few minutes. So one of our research guys has figured out how to get a polysiloxane into a wall solution. Chemtren, Zyvax, they've been doing this for a bit, but slightly different chemistry and slightly different results. And so it takes a lot to prevent the polymers from actually setting up in the can, but it's been done. Right. So that's kind of my focus now for this year and next year, is to actually tell the industry that this is a super great benefit for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And now that's on the silazane side of the equation.
Sure.
Stoner is the industry's largest manufacturer of paste waxes for those who use it. So we have both the Miracle Gloss line, which is the old McGuire's M8 that we purchased about 3 years ago, and the Honey Wax line that I was involved with.
Okay.
And we're in the process of introducing some water-based paste wax to the industry, and the whole concept behind water is that it actually, it makes a very effective carrier for something, and the technology to get rid of the water without having any impact on a polyester or an epoxy is, that's a known given.
Right.
Okay, so the advantages over and above taking a solvent out of the equation, from my perspective, in the last 2 years with the impact on the whole supply chain issue, is getting cans, and the cost of metal has really skyrocketed.
Sure.
And you could put water, it doesn't need to go in a metal can, it goes into a plastic can.
Right.
And those are things that can be sourced in the U.S. And so my focus is from my old financial background, is if we need to control costs, we need to get creative.
Yeah.
And the less it costs, the less we can sell it for. Everybody wins.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, supply chain, that's been a challenge for a lot. A lot of people.
It's a big headache.
Yeah. Yeah. So from the mold standpoint, any benefits overall? I know the benefits from a water-based in terms of, better for your workers who are putting it on, I'm sure. From the mold standpoint, more pools, less pools? How does it affect the mold over time?
So I'll tell you this now. We're in a developmental project in the wind market, okay? And that's all epoxy infusion primarily.
Right.
And typically that's all solvent type of systems, except in Europe, okay? So Europe, they've been doing water for a while.
Sure.
So, and the release side for that marketplace, it depends on the quality of your tooling and the quality of your workforce. So when you go to Asia, they don't have the same kind of training concept, emphasis on doing things the way the U.S. or Europe does things. So on a wind blade, they're happy to get 2 releases.
Sure.
Okay. In Europe, the standard is 3 and moving it to 5.
Right.
Okay. So I can tell you that we can do that with a water system. The other types of chemistries that are out there that are water in Europe for the wind market have a real transfer issue. So, and all these wind blades get painted, so the blade companies have made significant investments in surface preparation.
Sure.
And, we think that with the direction we're going, the transfer issues are less. So, it's not getting rid of a flammable or an environmental thing. It's the total cost to deal with the surface is less if you use the right type of chemistry.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, in Asia, where they don't really care about number of release cycles, what they care about is transfer. Okay. And because they don't have they don't want to spend the money to do the surface preparations the way they do in Europe. So the chemistry is a little bit different, but which is one of the reasons why they don't get as many release cycles. So there's trade-offs in life. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the polyester end of the world, okay, no question you can get as many release cycles with a water-based system as you can with a solvent.
Okay, very good. Thermoplastics into that. I mean, you make obviously mold release agents for the thermoplastics?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the big picture of life, we get asked this question a lot. Do you have different chemistries for metal tooling, plastic tooling, this tooling? And so you want your release agent to do a few things.
Sure.
Okay, and a lot of that has to do with the sealer that you are applying, because the
Right.
job of the sealer is to stick to the mold,
Absolutely.
and the job of the release agent is to stick to the sealer.
Right.
So the sealer is every bit as important
Absolutely.
as the release agent.
Yeah.
So on the thermoplastic side of the equation, if we're just talking about that industry, so whether it's rotational molding
Yeah.
or injection molding or even thermoplastic composites, you're not really, the release side of the equation is not as difficult as it is
Sure.
for our type of industry
Right.
here. Okay.
Right.
And so rotational molding's been using water-based semi-permanents forever, but
Yeah.
they have the advantage of heat. Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's
anytime
true.
you have heat, you can drive water off a little bit
Oh, absolutely.
quicker.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is what it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you've summarized it really well. It's really based on the process of how you apply. You know, it plays a big part in, how many pulls you're going to get and the lifetime of your mold with that release. There's a process, and you got to follow the process the right way.
So, one of the things I found in my 40-some-odd year career in this business is, as good as the manufacturing people are, and they are very good,
Right.
is there's a tendency to do the same thing over and over and over again,
Right.
and resist change, because change means you have to do something different.
Yeah.
Okay, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, but one of the things that is oh so critical to ongoing maximum performance of your molding process is mold cleanliness.
Yes.
Okay, and the polyester industry, which is still a big, huge subsegment, and especially the volume guys, is every time you do a molding cycle with polyester or vinyl ester or whatever, is you're going to get some styrene that migrates out of the system onto the mold surface.
Right.
And the more release cycles you have, the more styrene that goes on there. And yes, you may put some more release agent on after so many times, but that buildup just keeps on going. So think of it as, you have a barbecue.
Yeah.
And you go out there and you cook some ribs, and
Yeah.
if you don't clean the mold surface, it
Yeah.
looks ugly,
Oh, yeah.
and that's in a macro type of scenario.
Sure.
And in this kind of industry, you don't see the buildup as quickly, but it is there.
Yeah.
And most of the fabricators, as good as they are, haven't figured out that if they clean the mold a little more frequently, you will optimize your process. You will spend less time actually getting parts out. So another one of the unknowns that people don't know is that a mold cleaner, meaning a solvent-based mold cleaner, will not remove a silazane that's well stuck to the mold. Okay, and everybody thinks that. So that's one of the reasons why they don't go out there and wash the mold more frequently.
Okay.
So that's when I spend an awful lot of time teaching that to people and
Sure.
proving it to them.
Okay. So what's the answer there? I mean,
The answer is that people got to take a leap of faith after we show them and say, okay, now, this is pretty simple. Okay, it's you clean the mold, and I kind of go like this. Let's just say that you're making a camper shop, okay, and you're doing 2 parts a shift, and so that's 10 a week, and I ask the question is okay, how many releases do you get before you have to put more on?
Right.
And the real answer to that is it changes,
Yeah.
because on a new mold, clean mold, you'll get more releases than one that's been in production for 3 weeks, okay, or a month. So anyway, so the real next question is how often do you have to take the mold out of production and strip it down?
Yeah.
And how long does that take, and what's it cost you to do that? And then I go, okay, so you made X amount of parts before you had to do this, and then I would suggest to them is take 25% of that number, wash the mold, knock the styrene down, put 1 coat of release agent on, and go back into service.
Okay.
And that takes not very long.
No.
Okay.
What's that old saying? I'm trying to remember the old saying where about an ounce of prevention, or what is it? An ounce of.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of that?
There's something about care in there too. So
something about preventative
Yeah.
maintenance goes a long way for, if you'll just take the time to do that.
sure. So
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I don't know. Maybe I've got it completely backwards. I don't know. But Wynn, it's been fantastic. Thank you for coming by and spending some time. How can people learn more about Stoner Incorporated? What's their website? Anywhere else they can learn more?
Stoner's website is stonermolding.com.
Okay.
But I think the best thing to do is, I'm in the composite side of the equation.
Sure.
Is email me, call me up.
Okay.
I have a colleague, Zach, sitting right here. He also calls on the composite trades. We have a wealth of knowledge that we like to share.
Okay.
I tell people that primarily what I do is I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. And I go out there and listen to what their issues are in life,
Right.
and then propose improvements. And
Yeah.
if they choose to follow the improvements, that's up to them. If they don't, that's fine.
Right.
And if I've done my job, they might buy something.
Sure.
Okay? But I'm not out there.
You're out to educate.
Exactly.
The main thing is to educate.
Exactly. Okay.
So if they have questions, can you give your email at Stoner?
Sure. It's wdoolittle, DOOL, at stonersolutions.com.
Stoner Solution. Okay. Very good. And we'll be posting a link to that. And that is Wynn Doolittle. Love the name, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, because you said before the show, it's short for
Winthrop.
Winthrop.
And I'm the third. There is no fourth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a name that kids are friendly with as you're
Right.
growing up.
Sure. Yeah. I love
It does
that.
build character.
I would have changed mine. If I were a kid, I'd say, can we lengthen that? I would just want to be Winner.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
Wynn, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. Hope you enjoy the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Enjoy the time here, and hope you guys get a lot out of it.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, anybody who's going to tune in on this.
Yeah, we've got quite a few. Maybe not to the live. We got one actually live right now. So, but yeah, to the recordings and everything after that, we'll be posting this here in a couple of days on our website, and for all of our audio listeners out there, they'll be able to check it out.
Excellent.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. I wish I had a remote to.
A what?